call the meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. Is it okay if we stand for the pledge, Sarah? You all set? Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adding or deleting any items to the agenda. I do not have anything to add. Are we all set there? Under administrative matters, everybody had a chance to look at the payroll and check warrant.
If we could just have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the check warrant in the amount of $28,103.60.
I second that.
And, sorry, and payroll for $11,823.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And approving the minutes from 7/14/23. You were both remote. This is for all three of us.
7/24, right?
Yeah, did I say that wrong?
Yeah.
July 24th. I make a motion to approve the minutes for July 24th, 2023.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Take a moment and sign the checks and the minutes.
So, fireworks situation, would that be something to add to the agenda? I just got a complaint about it.
Sarah, a fireworks,
Complaint, basically. Something we've spoken about before. Is that something to add to the agenda, Sarah, or is that something we should put on for the next meeting? That was my question.
I think we can handle that outside of the meeting because the
Okay.
board doesn't have to discuss it. What we should discuss, and I'll add it to the next agenda, is we had discussed amendments to the fireworks ordinance and the burn permit ordinance, and we haven't finalized that, so that can be added to the next agenda.
Okay.
But as far as any complaints, we can handle that outside of the meeting. Between yourself as the fire warden and or Mimi as the constable.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Just the two. Thank you.
Okay. I had a question, Sarah, on the check warrant. For the computers. Okay, never mind. I thought I should have used a ruler. I thought it said street lights, and it was a large amount. But it was the computers.
Yeah.
So disregard that, never mind.
So the computers were ordered, to remind you, that is being paid for with the Homeland Security grant.
Thank you. Any announcements?
I just have one announcement, which is that the town of Mendon on some roads, received significant damage in the rain event of August 14th. And that, there's damage to Notch Road, Wheelerville Road, and the Falls Road, and that, travelers should use caution when they see cones and signs that are alerting them to this damage, and that we are working as fast as we can to correct the problem. Wheelerville Road is closed to residential traffic only, in order to ensure the safety. We don't want a lot of cars on Wheelerville. So that's the status update with that, and then we'll go over the different damage projects later on in the agenda. But I just want travelers to be aware.
Yeah, if you don't drive on Wheelerville during the day and see the damage, and then travel at night for the first time, that's incredibly dangerous.
I'll add to that as well, if any other rain storms, be careful, because there can be a lot bigger damage than what you see for signage very quickly.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Especially in areas that have already been disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Public comment.
I do. How much of that was from August 14th, or whatever, the last day you just mentioned, was really precipitated by the storm that came before, that wasn't really well looked at? Because the rainstorm that just occurred this past week was nowhere near what happened previously. So what happened previously, that set up what just showed up now, and you really never noticed what happened before.
I was curious about that too, because the first rainfall, the rain that we got was over a longer period of time. And I think the second storm.
Second storm was nothing compared to what was previously.
But it was in a closer, the window was so much smaller when it fell. Sarah, did you hear?
You know what I'm saying?
We didn't.
The first
Yeah,
period,
we did.
the heavy rainfall really established what this just recent past, now that you noticed.
Right. I was wondering the same thing. I don't know anything about
Yeah,
that.
I don't know, I didn't travel.
We got an answer,
So
I think.
we didn't report,
And if you didn't report
we
the
did
first
not.
one, now do you really get reimbursement for the second? I don't know.
Will FEMA reimburse us for the damage if, we're wondering if the first rainfall set up the
Set the
damage
stage for the second one.
for the second?
It did set the stage for the second one because the soils became saturated. And all the rain this summer has saturated the soils. But after the July rain event, we did not see damage within the right-of-way of Mendon. We did not report any damage to the right-of-way. Our roads were not necessarily affected by water runoff, erosion, or damage from the storms.
Well, they may not have been visibly damaged,
Correct.
but structurally they may have been. You only
Well-
look at it surface-wise.
Well, could I add to that too? The areas up above our ditch lines that your runoff comes from to begin with have definitely been affected throughout the summer with the rains and most likely with the first storm. The question is, are the guys expected to like go up a half a mile into the mountainside to figure that out? Which, you know, would cause a smaller rainstorm, more water runs to our ditches, to our roads.
I don't know, I'm not an engineer.
Yeah, well, it's all most likely caused from that. The question is, will FEMA reimburse based on?
The FEMA won't reimburse outside of the town's right-of-way, period. So when we go to do inspections, it's only within the 50-foot right-of-way of the road.
I think the question though overall, sir, is will they reimburse based on this last small storm?
So that's what we're working on right now. This is pretty much going into the flooding event too, so if
Okay.
he wants to continue to participate in that conversation. But essentially, the rain that we received on 8/4 came down so heavily in a flash flood from the mountainside that it washed out and damaged some of the roadway. There is a process on whether FEMA will quantify the damage in Rutland County, so it's on a county basis. If we reach certain thresholds, then the governor can ask the federal government to declare disasters. As far as the first rain event, what we've been told by FEMA so far is that the rain event is going to start on July 7th to July 17th. That was the first damage period. And any public roads that were damaged during that time frame is already under a declared disaster. The 8/4 storm could possibly be included in the first declared event. However, they usually determine when an event starts and ends based on a particular weather pattern. So what FEMA is saying with the National Weather Service is that that was a separate weather system that went through during the July period than the damage that occurred in August. So we were trying to, VTrans was gathering information from the towns that were affected on 8/4 and 8/5 that to determine whether we reach certain thresholds in order to declare another disaster. It would be a different disaster number. So that threshold is $1.1 million or $4.44 per capita in the county. So Addison County has reported out already, and Addison County has quantified those numbers. So again, it's up to FEMA on whether they include those costs in with the previous storm, or if they're going to assign a new disaster number to the August damage. Rutland County is still gathering their information and hasn't reported it yet to the state to figure out if we've hit that $1.1 million in damage, and the $4.44 per capita. We toured our roads with FEMA on Thursday, or with, not with FEMA, with V-Trans on Thursday. So they gathered all of the information on our roads on Thursday. They were visiting multiple towns on Thursday. So I expect sometime this week that determination will be made, and the governor will either ask FEMA to declare another disaster or include it in with the first one. But according to FEMA's rules, it's based on weather pattern, and we have been told that it is a separate weather pattern than the first storm. So we don't know yet whether or not we're going to have assistance from FEMA.
Do we know how much Mendon is at, or we're still waiting from V-Trans for that? Or do we have a rough idea?
We know where all our damage is, and we documented it in pavement pictures, and we are working on temporary repairs. In some cases, the temporary repairs are the permanent repairs. The first project that needs to happen as soon as we can execute it is the repairs to the Notch Road. There was a culvert that was banded together under the ground, and it dislodged. So half the culvert washed out under the road, and we needed to locate a culvert that would fit, band it back together, and then fill it in. So we located the culvert today, and we're looking at contractors to do that work, to fill it in, to repair that. So right now, there's a hole in the Notch Road from that damage.
Do we have a dollar amount though? Like, do we know where our dollar amount is on this, or we're just running the bill?
We don't know overall. We don't know overall because we have, it's difficult to determine without getting quotes from the contractors.
Mm-hmm.
What size culvert is the one you're specifically talking about?
I think it was a 30-inch. It was a 30-inch. So Bill had a hard time locating a 30-inch. He could find 36s and 24s, but it was hard to locate the 30. But he found one today.
And Bill, he doesn't think that if we really need to, we wouldn't be able to do that in-house or for a 30-inch?
He does not think that we would be able to do that in-house. No. We need an excavator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are temporary repairs. We'll see if it's a declared disaster, then FEMA will come in and will be required to probably upgrade that culvert and replace the whole thing.
Before we get too far, we have another public comment, I believe.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, the difference between the two events was how much came down in a very short span of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got a rain gauge up there on Wheelerville Road, and that day, the total for that day was almost 4.5 inches of rain, but the bulk of it came down like within a 2-hour window. And the ground was so saturated by that point, there's nowhere for the water to go. It goes where gravity tells it to go.
Right.
And then that's what caused it. So it wasn't, it was definitely from the runoff,
Mm-hmm.
because the ground was saturated, and that was pretty, I was there for it.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense.
Yep.
But I will note that some of these subsequent rainstorms, much smaller, I don't know if you've observed, but the washouts have definitely widened in some areas with very little rain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to your first point, I've witnessed it myself, spotty. It can be one spot that's a mile wide, 2 miles wide, and it gets twice as much, 3 times as much rain as the spot a mile away, especially Wheelerville.
Yeah.
So that might answer your question too, Dave, a little bit, but it's a mystery.
When the town is determining the damage with FEMA, a project must cost at least $3,800 to be eligible, and it goes up to $1 million as a small project. Those are fairly large projects to the town of Mendon, but that's FEMA's definition of a small project. And anything over $1 million is considered a large project. So we don't expect that we have any large projects. We have small projects. You know, some of them could range $5,000 or $6,000, and then others, you know, we might be up in the 10 to 15 million or $15,000. Some of the repairs to the bridges, Bridge 15 did sustain some scouring and undermining of a bridge abutment. So we'll need to contact an engineer for that and look to see what the permanent solution is for repairs for that.
Sarah, a quick question for you too. If we did do stuff in-house and keep track of the costs for doing it, does FEMA also reimburse us on that? Does that count? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so with the Notch Road, we needed to wait until we could get V-Trans to take a look at it to assess the damage, but then we're moving as quickly as possible to get that one fixed. So we'll reach out to, we'll follow our procurement policy. We're required to follow our procurement policy, but that will be hopefully done sometime this week, early next week, to get that filled in. The Wheelerville is, Wheelerville also has a number of different washouts, especially from Notch Road to Bridge 15, which is, you know, that's about a 2-mile stretch. And probably a 1.5 miles of the 2-mile stretch has some ditch washout, or it comes out into the roadway. So filling that back again to make sure that the roadway is travelable is something that we're going to want to get done within, you know, the next couple weeks. So that has to move forward expeditiously as well.
And what is the timeline to file with, like Rutland County, FEMA and all of that for this?
So they're actually a lot slower than we are. So we'll go forward. What they tell you to do is go forward and make the repairs that you normally would make. And then depending on if it's which disaster it's with, if it's with the first disaster, they've already had some applicant briefings, and we're going to have to make sure that we can participate in one of the applicant briefings that's still going on with that disaster. If not, it'll be a couple weeks before they have an applicant briefing for a new disaster.
Okay.
And I don't know, I do want to confirm, did anyone attend the applicant briefing? I had suggested maybe the town attend an applicant briefing under the first disaster, just as an educational experience.
Yes.
So was anyone able to attend any of those?
I was not able.
I attended the one online.
The first one.
You
Yeah.
did do, okay, you did do
Yes.
the one online?
Yes.
Because that could probably count if it's that disaster.
Okay.
If we get notification under that disaster, most likely, you have been recorded that you participated in that, with your name being registered under the meeting. So that might also work.
Okay, I'll get the date and time that I attended it, send it to you.
Okay, great. So that's the status of Notch and Wheelerville Road. Now, Falls Road, again, is a legal trail classification. It will not be eligible for FEMA assistance. What happened during the storm is there was a couple culverts that blew out. So all of the residents that were on Clark Mason, Northland Road, and off the Falls Road were all isolated from emergency services. And so Bill, for emergency purposes, went back and replace the culverts, put them back in. They just, either the road washed out around them and he could just backfill, or one completely washed out and he had to pull it out from the woods, but it didn't damage the culvert. So he replaced them. He did have some help from Matt Cowell, hauled some material for him that day, and 2 residents on the road had excavators or tractors that also helped do some repairs. And that was, during the event in order to reestablish access into that area. So most likely, with Irene, we did have some emergency repairs on that road that were eligible, and we did get reimbursed for it. We will ask if it's a declared disaster that they be reimbursed, but most likely they might not. And there was about 200 tons of material that was brought up there.
Do we have a cost on that yet, sir?
We don't have a cost on that yet, no. So that's the status. And then, Bill's gonna look for some direction from you guys on, if we're gonna do anything, what else we wanna do up there.
Sarah, that's, you, and just will not be included Falls Road, correct?
Most likely,
And
it
the
will not be included.
And the reason was because we did the work without documenting it, or it just because it was not part of that situation?
It's the road classification. The road classification is a legal trail.
Okay.
Which the town typically does not maintain legal trails. We have maintained this road since Irene because Notch Road was closed. That was their primary access before Irene, and then we didn't rebuild the Notch Road. FEMA wouldn't pay for the total cost, so we used it to upgrade. But as far as the formal classification of the Falls Road, it's a legal trail.
All right. Okay.
It has to be, FEMA doesn't pay for legal trails or class 4 roads. It has to be class 3, 2, or 1.
Okay.
Were our repairs considered temporary on those?
They were not. So Bill brought up Josh Carnival is the river specialist engineer with A&R, and he got approval for the repairs that he's done so far. To look at the Notch Road, he got direction from him on what he's allowed to do there without permitting. He did have to get 2 permits, I believe, for 2 of the projects that he was working on.
Ones that he already did?
He already did that, yeah.
The projects are already done?
Yeah, he's got permission from the state to do some of the repairs already.
Okay, great.
So we're ready to go to fix the Notch Road, and then in the next couple weeks, we gotta be up on the Wheelerville.
Okay.
Long-term projects are gonna be some of the large culverts in Wheelerville between Bridge 15 and the Notch, needs some armoring. It really is the wing walls or the approach into it just needs some armoring. And that's, some of those are gonna be, significant projects. Just because of how far downhill the material went.
Would it make,
Still in the right way, but one of them is probably 12 to 15 foot drop from the roadway to pull material out.
okay. So equipment-wise, you're saying, like an excavator's?
Yeah, equipment wise. Yeah, we'll bid that out for contract. That's why I want to get the roadway secured, and then we'll bid the culverts out as a separate contract. And there, we have to move forward on those projects before winter, but we don't, that's not the emergency repairs that needs to occur very timely. The Notch Road and the Wheelerville ditching is something that we need to move forward with in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
All right, have we covered A under business?
Yes.
Are there any other questions? All right. Moving on to B.
So,
Do we need to,
the,
oh, okay. I didn't know if we
Yeah,
needed to make a motion for hiring somebody. Are you planning on hiring without a bid for the ones that are
yeah,
away?
those are emergency repairs, so I am going to take the lowest qualified bidder that's going to show up before the end of the week.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as far as, are we moving on to B?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So, Steve Elrin is our new zoning administrator, and he has been getting his feet wet in the position since March. I think March, right, when he was appointed?
Yeah.
And so he's requested to, confer with an attorney similar to what Susanna Lafredo did, in learning the process on, how to issue violations and whatnot, under his job description. So, similar to what we approved with Susanna, he's requesting to spend some time with an attorney to guide him with our process, with our regulations. And so that would be Selectboard approval to do that.
Do you want a motion with that?
And, well, yeah, I would like the threshold to be similar to what we approved with Susanna, and I'm sorry I don't have that number in front of me. But if you could just say like up to $2,000, that would probably cover what needs to happen. And then he can come back if he needs further direction than that.
So I make a motion to allow Steve Ellerin up to $2,000 for legal counsel for zoning violation guidance.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions? None?
That's all I have.
All right. And I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:04 p.m.
Second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.